Good day, everybody. This is firstly Joy Ortega. So I'll be teaching the first part of our, or I'll be reporting the first part of our report, which is teaching speaking skills. So, first of all, this would be an introduction to the topic, and I'll be discussing some definitions and some important facts about teaching speaking skills. And before anything else, I would like to emphasize the teaching speaking skills is an important skill, just like any other skills that every student should learn. And of course, for us to teach this kind of skill successfully, of course, the teacher should have this kind of skills also. So, in order for us to successfully deliver the information that the students needed to learn in order for them to speak or to learn this skill, of course, the teacher should also have this specific skill. So, anyway, let's start with this one. So, teaching speaking is very important to us, of course, teachers, and of course, to the students who will be receiving the information, because this skill will be focusing on producing English sounds and patterns. Of course, since it's about speaking, there will be sounds that we are going to encounter in order for us to use those sounds in formulating a word, and then those words into sentences, and those includes the stresses, intonation patterns, and the rhythms. So in selecting appropriate words and sentences according to social setting, especially according to a specific audience, situation, and subject matter, it is also important in teaching speaking skills. Of course, the students or the teachers or anyone that will practice this skill should not just be speaking and speaking. Well, of course, as far as we remember in terms of the listening skills, it's important for us to listen first before speaking. So, same with speaking skills, we can see the interconnection of those skills and the importance of those skills and how they help each other to become a better speaker. So, here in this situation, the speaking skills is very important because and also very sensitive, since we needed to consider certain things before speaking. One of those is the grammar, of course, since we are going to mostly the topics will be about the acquiring of the second language, so it will be dealing also with the grammar, and of course the social setting, where to speak, who to speak, or when to speak, so those should be considered in terms of this skill. Next is that in teaching speaking, it is very important that the thoughts are organized so that it could be meaningful and logically sequenced. And the used and the language used should be the means of expressing values and judgments. Of course, since we are talking about the skill which is speaking, it's very important for us to have the words properly organized first, or in another word, before speaking, we should thoroughly think about those thoughts and ideas before we are going to um, speak it out, because there are instances that other people who will listen to our words could be in a way offended or hurt or somewhat, they could have reactions towards our words. So it's very important that in considering this kind of skill, we should also focus on how we are going to speak, the manner or the way we speak with other people. And of course, when we are speaking, mostly we are going to express our judgment or our opinion about things. So it's very important that we are not only teaching the grammar or the sentence structure, but also the importance of the manner when we are speaking. Next one is the definition of speaking. So there are various definitions of speaking that are given by different people who studied about this skill. First, of course, speaking was one of the four skills of English. When we say one of the four skills, we have the listening, we have the reading, we have the writing, right? And of course, speaking is one of them, and it belongs to a productive skill. Since speaking is very active skill, it is a productive skill, unlike the other skills like listening and and writing, who are to other people, are defined as receptive skill. Here, speaking is one of the productive skill, but of course, it has been analyzed and it has been explained before that listening is not only passive, right? It's also like the other skills which has a process or a cognitive process which is very vital and an active process. So yeah, going back to this one, since speaking is productive skill, it's very important that there are lots of competences to be considered, and each skill is or could be integrated with each other, and sometimes it's difficult for students to obtain. For example, before we are able to speak, of course, sometimes we are reading, and from that reading contents, and from the contents that we have read, we can speak about those ideas. And also, before speaking, we are able to listen first before giving out our ideas, right? So here it is emphasized that all of them, referring to the skills, should be integrated with each other. So basically, they are really important with each other. Okay. According to Oxford Dictionary, listening, I mean, speaking is a skill used to express or communicate opinions, feelings, or ideas by or as talking, and it involves activities in the part of the speaker as psychological and physical stages. So of course, as I have said a while ago, speaking is used to express, right? It's very self explanatory. It is used to express opinions, feelings, or ideas or thoughts. And when it comes to speaking, there is not only a physical process wherein we use our mouth, we use our tongue, but also psychological or cognitive and emotional stages and mental processes that we undergo in order for us to have a very concise, clear, and clean speaking um, activities, right? So, also according to Clark, speaking is fundamentally an instrumental act in order to have some effect on their listeners. For example, there is a speech, so it is going to be instrumental or an instrumental act and an effective act to a listener when, for example, someone or a teacher is delivering a speech in front of the class about how they should behave as a grown up youth or student. So there could be an effect to the listeners, right? So that's one of the fundamental effects of speaking. And according to Brown, speaking is a communicative activity with listeners wherein every decision made in planning a speech is made with them in mind. So of course, as what I have said a while ago, we should consider our audience in terms of speaking. So every topic that we are going to have, every ideas, thoughts, or opinions that we had, those should be in accordance with who will be listening. Of course, when we are going to have this skill or this activity, the speaking skills with our students, we should know the appropriate content in order for them to relate or understand or learn what we are delivering to them. So it's very important to put in mind the audience when it comes to speaking. According to Torquay, it is an interactive process of constructing meaning that involves producing, receiving, and processing information. Of course, I'm not gonna expand it anymore because I have explained it a while ago that speaking is really an active process of processing information and producing ideas in order for us to deliver them to the audience or to the listener, and in order for them to receive and learn them. Next, also according to Turkey, it is a form and meaning wherein an independent when it comes to the context that is including the participants, environment, and purpose. Of course, similar to my explanation before, teaching speaking to students is very important. A very clear example of this is when it comes to using these skills, a student or someone or anyone shouldn't only speak and speak, they should know when to speak, to whom to speak in a very important manner or in a very respectful manner. So in taking this skill or in doing this skill, they should put in mind who are the participants that they will be dealing with, where it is going to happen, and why they are going to have it. So that's one of the importance of teaching speaking to the students in order for them to understand this context. Okay, so for the elements and components of teaching speaking, we have first the pronunciation. Of course, it's very important that teaching speaking should be focusing on this one because speaking is not only delivering words. So, in order for the listeners or the learners to understand them clearly, of course, the pronunciation should be clear also and should be articulated clearly. So, pronunciation is one of the elements of or components of teaching speaking, wherein an utterance should be articulated, and the pronunciation cannot be separated from intonation and stress. So, when we say intonation, it has something to do with the rising and falling of the way we speak words or the language, and then the stress, of course, is how we put the stress to a specific syllable in order for us to deliver our message or our emotions clearly to the listeners. So that's the first element. Next, of course, is the an additional for pronunciation. Intonation and stress are largely learned by imitating and repetition. Of course, there are lots of instances wherein we learn through listening. Of course, that's why it's very important that we integrate these skills with each other, and pronunciation can be imitated and repeated. So by that we can learn on how to pronounce words properly. For example, you have watched a video about speaking skills, and then you heard of the words, probably for example words that are unfamiliar to you before, and through listening to those speakers who are speaking, you can imitate them and you can repeat them in a way that you can pronounce it properly or clearly already. So that's it. Next is the vocabulary. So in teaching listening to the students, it is important to put into mind the vocabulary, and it is the appropriate diction used in a communication. So when we are speaking, it doesn't only focuses on the grammar, of course, or in the manner that we speak. It should also focus with the diction or the choice of words or the vocabulary that we have. So, for example, you are a speaker, and since we are going to teach this skill to the students, it's very important that it's made clear to them that your vocabulary or the level of your vocabulary should be depending on the level of the vocabulary that of the person that is listening to you. So for if you are talking to a person with a very wide vocabulary, if you know that the person can understand you in a way that you understand your words, of course you are free to use the vocabulary words that are in your mind. But if you are talking um to people that isn't on the same level of vocabulary as you, then might as well not use those words, right? So, but since we are talking about teaching listening, teaching speaking skills, it's very important that we also develop the vocabulary skills of our students in order for them to navigate widely and use widely the language. Of course, the grammar, it's very um it's a very complicated topic, especially to other people who aren't familiar with the grammar rules. So, grammar is a set of rules which describe how we use the language, and students must arrange correct sentence in a conversation. So, in teaching speaking skills to the students, it should be made clear to them that grammar is also important since we are going to talk about the subject verb agreement, right, with the tenses of the verb. So in speaking, it's very important, especially if we are going to have them deliver speeches or etc. in a specific event or situation. So again, we have the pronunciation, we have the vocabulary, now we have the grammar, and fourth, we have the accuracy and fluency. So in teaching the speaking skills, accuracy and fluency is very important. Accuracy is a state of being correct or exact and without error. The students do not make serious phonological errors, a few grammatical and lexical errors, but only 1 2 major errors causing confusion. So, since we are talking about the teaching of speaking skills, it's very important that we are going to be accurate with the words that we use. So, here goes the vocabulary words or the diction or the choice of words. Of course, the fluency is also important because it's a person's ability to speak a language easily and well, or the way of a language or an action expressed in a smooth way, like what the native speakers do. Or, of course, when you say accuracy and fluency, that's the speakers should understand the proper fast speed or the proper speed that the speaker should be using in a communication setting, and also small pauses and and so those should also be considered in when it comes to the speaking skills of the students. And it's a very long process, and it shouldn't be done, or it cannot be done in just an overnight. So teaching speaking skills is very important, and it's very crucial, or it's very a long process for the students to learn. So that's why it's also important that if we are teaching them these skills, it's very important that we are also accurate and fluent when it comes to this one. So fifth one is the comprehension, and it is the power of the mind to understand, or the ability to comprehend spoken language, including diction, order, and context. So just similar to the other skills, which has the end goal of comprehension. In speaking skills, it's very important to consider the comprehension, so we are not going to talk and talk, or listen and listen, talk and deliver words. It's very important also that we comprehend the spoken language that we have, or if we understand the choice of our words, how we deliver it, the context where we are going to deliver, or anything about related to it. So comprehension is very important also when it comes to the speaking skills. So we have 6 similar types of speaking performances in a classroom according to Brown. Actually, there are lots of speaking performances that could be done. I mean, activities that could be done, speaking activities that could be done in a classroom. But here are 6 types of speaking performances wherein it could be used in order for us to develop our speaking skills. So first we have the imitative. So it's very limited portion of classroom speaking time will legitimately be spent generating human tape recorder. So from the word itself, imitative. So there is an imitation. For example, learners practice an intonation contour or try to pinpoint a certain vowel sound. Imitation of this kind is carried out not for the purpose of meaningful interactions but for focusing on some particular element of language form. For example, the focus of teaching speaking is for your diction or for your intonation or stress, right? So imitative could be a speaking performance that could be done in the classroom in order for you as a teacher and for the students to learn some element of the language. Next is the intensive speaking. So it goes one step beyond initiative, which include any speaking performance which is designed to practice some phonological. So when we say phonological, it deals with the sounds, right? And grammatical aspects. So when it comes to grammatical aspects, it deals with grammars and structure, right, of the language. And intensive speaking can be self-initiated, or it can form part of some pair work activity where learners are going over certain forms of language. The third one is the responsive. Since it is responsive, from the word itself, there will be a response. So in a classroom setting, there could be a short replies to teacher or student questions or comments, so these replies are usually sufficient and do not extend to dialogue, and those are called responsive. And that responsive could be a speaking performance that could be practiced inside a classroom in order for us to develop the speaking skills. So fourth, we have the transactional or dialogue. So from the word itself, transactional, so it carried out the purpose of conveying or exchanging a specific information, and it is an extended form of responsive language. So in a responsive language, there is a question and the students will speak in response to question or comments, but since it's transactional, here in this part there will be a conversation already. For example, um, may have more of negotiation nature to them than responsive speech does. So there could be a negotiation, but since it's leveling up from responsive, which is a short response, to transactional, which could be negotiation, and then third is the interpersonal, which is another form of conversation. That is of course when we say interpersonal, it is the interaction of people, and there could be a dialogue also, and it carried out more of maintaining social relationship than for the transmission of facts and information. So for responsive and transactional, it's more of sending information or transmitting information, but in interpersonal dialogue or interpersonal speaking performance inside the classroom, there is also responsive and transactional, which focuses on the transmitting of facts, but since it's interpersonal, it also has the capability of the conversation to develop social relationship. So last speaking performance activity in the classroom that could be used in order to develop the speaking skills is the extensive. Well, finally, students at intermediate to advanced level are called on to give extended monologues in the form of oral reports, summarizes, or perhaps short speeches. Here, the register is more formal and deliberative, and the monologue can be planned or impromptu. So, as you can see from imitative, extensive, responsive, it's leveling up as the performances as the performances are happening inside the classroom, is leveling up, while also leveling up the speaking skills of the students. So these are just some of the introductory information for teaching speaking. We had the definition, as well as the some of the types of teaching performance activities that could be done inside the classroom according to Brown, which could help to develop the speaking skills of the students. So that would be all, and thank you.